Trey, what's happening, man? Welcome to the podcast.
Appreciate you for having me on, brother.
I'm super excited for this podcast because I did a little bit of research on you. I stalked your Instagram profile. I stalked your YouTube channel. I stalked Wikipedia. So I think I have a pretty good understanding of kind of who you are, your background. But even then, I don't think I do. I'm sure there's a lot of stories, a lot of experiences that maybe aren't on social media or aren't captured on Wikipedia or some of these other news articles. So I'm excited to dive into that. But if someone's just clicked on this and they see your name and they have no idea who you are or what you've been through, why do you think they should stick around and listen to what you have to say?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is I think I'm at a point where a lot of basketball players aspire to be, just in a broad context. I make my living playing basketball, and a lot of guys are like, I want to be a pro, I want this. And not a lot of pros, like current pros, are telling them how to get from A to B. And I document the whole journey. I share everything, and I think there's a lot of value in that. And I'm going along this basketball journey alongside you. So there's a lot of value in a current player trying to pull up the next generation as they're doing it themselves. So if someone was to listen in, I think just know that if you're here to better yourself, improve your mindset, go farther in your basketball journey, I'm right there with you. I'm doing the same thing, and I'm just trying to share what I'm learning along the process.
It's always, I love to study athletes and entrepreneurs. That's kind of the niche of this podcast. And really the two topics that I'm the most passionate about, sports and business, kind of that intersection. And I've noticed there's a lot of similarities between athletes and entrepreneurs. A lot of, you hear some of the same things that are said, whether it's Elon Musk or LeBron James or Tiger Woods, like they all have their different unique twist to it. But a lot of times it's kind of like the same life lessons. And so one thing that I've learned while I've been studying them and kind of trying to learn from them is, if Elon Musk is saying at the age of 55 or whatever he is, right, at this current stage of his career, hey, I'm working in this manner or I'm doing this. If you're 28 years old and you're listening to that, maybe that's not the best advice that is going to work for you in that moment because you are at a very different stage of life than Elon Musk is. Same thing for LeBron James, right? Like LeBron is, LeBron always says work hard, right? Like the common kind of mindset, sayings. It's like, yeah, that's great. And maybe he's approaching it in his unique manner now, but he's, 40 something. He's at he's at the top of the NBA mountain of basketball. He's made it in a sense. So that I've always found that interesting is like I'm 28 right now. You were born in 96, so you're 29. So we're right there in age, and I feel like the life advice that we need now is different from the life advice that maybe someone who is farther along in their journey would be willing to give us. And that's why I resonated so much with your content, because I'm like, all right, here's a guy who's similar in age, who's going through it. We're obviously doing very different things. You're playing professional basketball. I'm trying to become a podcaster. Like, two different fields, but going through similar journeys, like going through similar struggles. So that's why I resonate with your content so much. And that's why I like when you said like, hey, if you're trying to make it just like I am, maybe this content will be for you.
Mm-hmm. I think I was talking with my buddy the other day on this concept of, because we also study other people that have like made these big jumps and got to the points that kind of I want to in my career, in my life, in my relationships. And the quote he said to me was, "Study the elevation, not the results." And I think that just hits right on that point. You see a lot of these, let's say, I'll just relate it back to basketball, but you'll see a lot of these pro workouts being shown on YouTube. And the word pro makes the young kid click on it. But then the young kid emulates what the pro's doing, and then is confused why that 5 dribble combo doesn't translate to game results, or Benedict Mathurin, I just use that because that's a workout I just watched the other day, is working on reading the pick and roll. Well, you're in high school. Teams run the same coverage every single time. Like, you don't need to know how to attack the ice. You don't need to know how to attack a soft hedge or a fake stunt hedge. Like, you just need to know, oh, okay, this is a pick and roll. Who am I reading? Like, you just need bare minimums. And yeah, I think that's why I'm so big on mindset, because a lot of these mindsets that the people we aspire to be have were shaped, and you can see that foundation if you break down some of the things they say even now at their point they're at. And I think, I think that's the most translatable thing for sure.
I want to get your take on this, but for the people who are watching or maybe listening, probably be a little beneficial to give a little more insight into who you actually are and kind of your journey, which we're going to dive into in this podcast. But just for the time being, so that people have a general awareness, right? Grew up in America, played college ball at the D1 level. You then transferred out to Europe, have played professionally in Serbia and Portugal. You're now in Lithuania, so you've been there for a little bit, playing professionally. And have been quite successful at it. And like you said, you make a living off of it. You are a professional basketball player. So for the time being, we'll use that as kind of just like your general, this is who Trey is. And we'll dive into obviously the specifics. But see, and now that I did that, now I'm forgetting what my actual question was going to be. See, this is the part of podcasting that's really fun when you lose your train of thought and you forget your question.
I'm sure it was going to be a banger.
Dude, it was going to be amazing, man. It was going to be absolutely amazing. Yeah, damn, what was the question I was going to ask? I completely lost my train of thought. It was going to be something about advice and taking advice from people who have made it. Oh, that's what I was going to ask. Okay, see, thought of it. So one of the things I've been thinking a lot about recently is you'll see all this advice on the internet, and like being in basketball, I'm sure it's as prevalent as any other industry. The industry that I've seen it the most in is like self-help. So like these self-help gurus or, selling information, right? Like these information guys, we'll call them course guys, whatever you want to call them. I sometimes think the advice is complicated because they need to sell a course. And if the advice was simple, then they would have nothing to sell. It would just be like, hey, do these 3 things. And, I'm not promising that. Like, we'll take fitness as an example. I feel like fitness is a perfect example for this, or just like general health. And I've said it before in the podcast, but it's like, hey, if you want to be healthy and fit, eat whole foods, do some type of exercise every single day, get sunlight, move your body. That could be in conjunction with the exercise, and, whatever, like get enough sleep, right? Like these are very basic things. Like it's not like, hey, you need to weigh out your protein and do all this. So if that was just the advice, just, hey, do these 4 things, then like, what's the course going to be about that I'm trying to sell you? Like, I have nothing else to sell you. Like, that's it. That's all of my advice. So I sometimes think like when you get into the internet and you listen to some of this advice, it seemingly seems a lot more complicated than it needs to be, just for the sake of, this needs to be a lot harder than it seems so that I can sell you a course and make money off it. Have you seen that with basketball? Like, have you seen kind of that side of it? And what would your advice be to someone who's trying to come up and make it as a professional basketball player?
Yeah, I think straightforward mastery is in the ability to make something simple, something complex, as how to get better at basketball, how to become an elite level entrepreneur. It's a very complex thing, and true mastery is being able to simplify it. So a lot of those people you're talking about I like to, don't attribute to malice what could be contributed to ignorance. And so I don't think necessarily, I like to think they don't have this devious plan. I think a lot of times they just don't truly know what they're talking about to the extent they're trying to advertise. But again, to get to at least 99% of the way to your goal, it's simple things, and it's just mastery of those. That 1% is where you need those more complex things. And you see that a lot in basketball, because what sells views, what sells, oh, what's that? Oh, I'm missing out on something, is what is going to get you from 99% of your potential to 100%. And that's what you're seeing. These trainers will be doing these things that are just so working on something so specific. And of course, there's a benefit in working on a very specific aspect, but acting like that will be the game changer in your development is the lie that everybody's selling, right? It doesn't matter how you drink your water. You know, there's the videos everywhere. Drink your water upside down, you get more hydrated. Drink your water with your left hand. And it's like, probably just drink the water, you know? And it's the same. It's the same for the most part with basketball development, with skill development. I think there are new full foundations of thought around skill development, basketball development that are, I would say, game changing. That if I applied those earlier, would have made a big difference. But for the most part, for a young person, you need to get in your 10,000 hours. Now, can you tweak them to optimize them a little better? For sure. But that doesn't take away the need for the 10,000 hours. So, yeah, it's in everything. It's in basketball, it's in entrepreneurship, it's in literally any industry. You're going to see people speaking from that perspective, because a lot of the times that's what gets engagement, because it's this feeling of, oh, I'm missing out on something. Oh, I'm doing something wrong. Oh, I haven't been working on this. Oh, now I'm going to be terrible. And it's like, oh, it's not really how it works.
Alan Stein has this great story. For those unfamiliar, Alan Stein he's a trainer, but he worked with Kobe Bryant a lot. And he said this one time, I think they were at some basketball event, and Kobe was going to go work out at like 4:00 in the morning, you know, classic Kobe. And, you know, the first part was like Alan finding out that Kobe was going to go work out at like 4 or 5 in the morning. And he was like, oh, you're kidding. Kobe's like, no, I'm serious. Like, I will be there at, you know, I think it was 5:00 a.m. And so Alan Stein gets there at 4:45 to try and, you know, beat Kobe. And Kobe's already sweating. Like, he's been there since, you know, 4:15, already working out. And Alan's like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna just sit back and I'll take some notes and just watch you practice, and then I'll come join you and I'll give you some tips. And Kobe's like, yeah, that's cool. And Alan was like completely stunned by the workout that Kobe was doing. And it was because the drills that Kobe was doing were so simple. It was like the very, very basics. It was, you know, footwork. It was, you know, jump shot. It was free throws. It was like some of the most basic workouts. Like, if you took Kobe's workout and you took like a 7th grade basketball team's workout, or even like a 2nd grade basketball team's work, like the basics, like how to dribble, like they would be indistinguishable. Like that's how basic these workouts were. And Alan was like, you know what? It clicked for me. Like, at that moment, I realized why Kobe was so great. And he went and he asked Kobe afterwards, and he was like, hey man, like I can't help but notice like you're doing all these basic workouts. And he was like, yeah, like they may seem basic, but try to do them consistently well.
Yep.
And that's where the magic is. He was like, to do it consistently well is hard. To do it well here and there, sure, most people could dribble a basketball if you give them enough attempts. But to do it consistently well, now that's where I separate myself. And so, you know, to what we were talking about, it's like, and I'm not in no way diminishing or saying that, hey, some of these more advanced workouts are useless or they're not valuable. Of course, there's value to be had. But I think our point and where we agree is that if you want to get 99% of the way there, focus on the basics, just like the late, great Kobe did.
For sure. And I think also when you look at people like Kobe, guys that are at the top of the top, they've maximized their potential to get to where they are, or really close. So now, like, their mindset is fine tuning and getting that 1% better. And Kobe, in his training philosophy, found that 1% in like, okay, I'm just going to master this one dribble pull up going right. Like, I've heard the stories. He practiced one move for an hour or whatever, same move, 2 dribbles right, pull up, masters that. And he's trying to get that 1% better. Now, if you are a lot farther behind, you need to understand the big picture of the game. There's so much more to basketball that you need to get comfortable with the language, get comfortable with the terminology, get comfortable with what's actually happening on the floor, reading the game. And I think that's where, if I look back on my training, I would have adjusted some of the stuff and wish I would have known of this constraint-led approach earlier, where I'm building environments in my training and I'm trying to work on specific things and reads and understanding these things, but I'm building this environment rather than just going for volume of reps. And because essentially I was fine tuning from age 9, since I started playing basketball, it was like same. Obviously you need to build that foundation, but I think the growth would have been a little more explosive if I would have took this more global picture and trying to grasp the whole concept of the game. Because truly, from where I'm at now in my 7th year playing pro overseas in 5 different countries, how I understand basketball to even where I was in college, it's like a completely different sport. Like there are concepts, terminologies, reads, understanding of what is going on that when I was in college, it was like, how can I be more athletic? How can I, just like master this 1 dribble pull up? There was no, okay, why am I shooting this shot? Okay, I'm coming off this pick and roll. I'm looking at this person and this person. It wasn't a chess match. It was just a play and try and be successful. And I think if I would have focused on these concepts earlier, I think that's where Europe gets skill development. Or I think that's where the new age American trainers are getting better at. There's this huge clash in training between the repetition-based training and then this constraint-based training, and they both say the other one shouldn't be used at all. And so there's this happy medium that needs to be found. But yeah, I kind of went on a tangent, but this is like the skill development stuff is stuff I'm really interested about, and that's kind of like the stuff I've been really like researching and studying, because I still think I have a lot of potential at this point in my career, more than most players at my age do, just because I was such a late bloomer. So yeah.
I took a note down because I want to get back to repetition versus constraint based training. So we'll bookmark that for now and come back to it. And I also want to get another topic that we'll bookmark is like the European versus American kind of upbringing and style of basketball. There's been a lot of debate, around that too, especially recently. Because I mean, listen, whether you like it or not, a lot of the best talent in the NBA right now is international. I mean, you look at Wemby, you look at Jokic, you look at Doncic. Like these guys are European, and I think for a long time it was heavily dominated by American-born players, and now it's, I mean, obviously as the game is expanding and becoming global, you're seeing this influx of international talent. The Trailblazers just drafted the I forget his name, the Chinese guy, who's apparently like, yeah, there you go, who's apparently like the mini Jokic or whatever. I'm like, all right, let's slow down. Like, let's not compare him to the top 5 center of all time. Yeah. Trey, I do want to get to your story a little bit, and I think this will be good for the audience, again, to kind of, familiarize themselves with you, and I think it's going to set us up well for the conversation that we're going to have later. When did basketball enter your life? Like, when did it enter? How did it enter? What are some of your earliest memories of basketball?
Yeah, I wish I was that like 3-year-old kid that was dribbling a basketball, but I was the, spaz ball of energy and like as young as I can remember, playing any sport I possibly could. All my friends played baseball, so baseball was actually probably my first love. Got my first scholarship offer in baseball as a sophomore, and then quit. Or no, sorry, as going into my sophomore year, then quit. But basketball, it was like my love since I was young. I was always better at baseball. It was just the dynamic aspect of it and the creativity aspect. And my earliest basketball memory is my dad coaching me in 5th grade, and the opposing coach and him were like going at it. Like he was that dad, and the other coach got like kicked out of the gym. He was like freaking out on the refs, and I still remember my dad and me always laugh about it. Uh, there was like a small like elementary school like rectangle window, and he got kicked out of the gym, and I remember you could just see him just peering through this little window trying to see if his son's team won. And I don't think I hit a game winner, but I think it went into overtime and we won. And that's still brings a smile to my face just because my dad is always, he wasn't like, he played high school basketball, but he's like ultimate competitor. And he was just like, dude, like we're gonna win this game. We're gonna compete. And so
Real quick, not to cut you off, but there's something about dads and refs that like, the two just don't met. Like, dude, some of my fondest, I say fondest now, but certainly in the moment they weren't, because I played water polo in high school. And like I'll be in the pool like in the middle of a game, and like a ref will miss a call or something, and I just hear my dad in the background just giving it to the ref, and I'm like, oh my god, here we go. And he got kicked out a couple times. So it's yeah. Anyways, back to your story, but it's something about dads and refs. They don't get along.
Yeah. And I'd say for the most part, my dad wasn't really on the refs. He was just so competitive, like with other coaches. Like he wouldn't like talk trash with them, but he was always just like, if they would like, you have really weird like rules in 5th grade basketball. Like there was a rule like you had to be within 3 feet of your man. And like I was clearly the best player, so what my dad did is just put the two other kids in the corners, so it was just 1-on-1 at the top, and the other coach. That's why he freaked out, but he was gonna find a way to win that game. But yeah. So then moving forward, in high school went to a really small school. We had like 100 kids per grade. No basketball player had ever played college from that school. It was a small little Christian school. Our like public school in the district was Zach Levine was there, and so I remember like 7th grade at the YMCA. I was like just I was kind of like a chubbier kid, just chubby fat kid playing in the open run, and I remember Zach was there, and normally Zach would play with all the adults, like all the in the men's run in like 7th grade, 8th grade, and so one day he was playing with the kids like his age, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll play, like whatever, we'll do it. And he was like talking like, all right, whose ball is it? And then I was like, yeah, shoot for ball. And he's like, you want me to shoot, or you want you or you want to shoot it? And I was like, you can shoot it. And he's like, from here, and he points at the 3-point line. I was like, no, you got to back up a little bit. Like I'd seen him play. I'm like, this dude's a dog. And he goes all the way to half court. Like there's no lie in the story. He goes to half court, and as he's shooting, I was like, yeah, you can shoot from there, whatever. Like it'll be our ball. And as he's shooting, he goes, you're stupid. That's it from half. And this was when Zach Levine was like, he was like 5'8". Like he had this crazy growth spurt, but he had like an NFL dad, and everybody talked about him. And I remember being like, okay, I'm gonna stay at my private school. I'm gonna stay over a big fish in a small pond over here. So, but yeah. So then I grew really late. I was like 5'8" as a freshman. Didn't grow till my junior year. Sprouted up to like 6'2". Got some like Division III interests. I had a solid junior year. Played AAU with the same AAU team as Zach. He was like 1 year above me though, even though we were kind of the same age. Or he's a year older than me, I believe. But so I was like the next crop of guys in that Friends of Hoop team. And first day of the viewing period, I had a great high school season. We had like placed in state, and then I avulsion fractured my pelvis with the whole Pac-12 coaching staffs and like scouts on the baseline, and I started getting like D1 conversations, and then that happened, and it just went radio silent from anyone. So I had nothing going into my senior year, no offers, D3, D2, anything. Ended up after my senior year, player of the year, had a couple Division II offers, a couple walk-on spots at a D1. still like super undeveloped, super raw, um, like kind of gangly, and just didn't. I didn't hit puberty until that like senior year, so it was just like learning my body, and ended up committing to a Division II on what I thought would be a scholarship. The coach was like, commit before May 15th. The scholarship's there. Call May 4th. Hey, coach, I'm ready to be a Viking. Hey, Trey, your scholarship's gone. So ended up, it was like the best. It's like it was at the time is like the best Division II in the Washington area. They had won a national championship 2 years before and a Final Four the year before. So I ended up walking on there and still paying student loans because of it. So that's my high school to college experience. And yeah, I could keep going if you want me to.
Well, first of all, I love that Zach LaVine story. I'm a Sacramento Kings fan, unfortunately.
Very unfortunate.
I grew up in Sacramento for a large portion of my life. It was cool in like the early 2000s when we had, White Chocolate, we had Jason
Yeah,
Williams, and then we had Mike Bibby, we had Peja, we have Vlade, obviously being Serbian, like those guys. Like I
yeah,
remember, growing up, this is my unsolicited, this is how I, found basketball, my unsolicited story. But watching those guys and then going out to my hoop in the backyard and like, pretending to be like Peja or, shooting the
yeah.
three or whatever, or like Vlade, Chris Webber, like those are some fun teams. So I was like, dude, I'm a Sacramento Kings fan. Like this is awesome. Like one of the best teams in the league. Little did I know that, 25 years, it would be just 25 years of misery, and just hell. So, but yeah, so I say that because of your Zach LaVine story, but, um, growing up though, I'm curious, did you have any NBA guys that you looked up to that you said, man, I want to be like this guy? Like who did you emulate your game after, or were you just kind of riding solo at that point?
I think that's where a lot of the motivation for my brand and sharing my journey. If you're not a big recruit, you're not necessarily going to be in the scene where you're at. So where in Seattle, there's a huge hoop scene. You got Jamal Crawford, Isaiah Thomas. You got guys giving back all left and right. Um, I just was not in that circle or remotely. I had zero connection to that circle. And so it was me thinking of a workout, going to the gym and doing it. Just me and my buddy, best friend, best man at my wedding. Just kind of just like you said, just going and just like, I want to get better. I have to do something to get better. Just do everything. I mean, I was riding. We had an open gym at our high school at 6 a.m. We tried to ride bikes there because we didn't have our license. It's like 13 miles away. We had to leave at like 4 a.m. And we get like halfway there and we're like, dude, what are we doing? It's like, it's still dark out. What are you doing? So, of course, call mom. Mom picks us up, just takes us to school. And, but I wish, I so badly wish I had, I guess, a close, it didn't even have to be an NBA player. It could have been a college player. It could have been anybody kind of take me under their wing and talk to me about things because I was just, like you said, riding solo, figuring things out on my own. I knew I've always kind of had the personality. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to set these lofty goals. My dad instilled that from a young age, man. Like you can do whatever you want in life. It's just a matter of how bad you want it. And so I had that mindset and had zero direction. It was just go. And so there wasn't a player I modeled my game after. It was, oh, I'm pretty versatile. I can do everything. Let me try and get better at everything. So ended up being just fairly average at everything. And then I think that helped me in Europe, hurt me in college. But yeah, I would say it was definitely a more of a solo trek, and I'm thankful for it now. I think that's where I get a lot of my mindset, a lot of my ideas of this growth mindset of constantly evolving and trying to problem solve things because I've been doing that my whole basketball career.
Dude, you know, you talking about how your dad instilled this value of lofty goals and going after things and giving it your best shot. I saw this tweet and it's probably my favorite life advice of all time. I think I'm going to get like a poster made of it or just put a
Yeah.
quote, like put that specific quote on my wall. But the tweet is don't half ass it, full ass it. And it's like, it's funny, whatever, but it's so true. Like whatever you do, like give it your best shot, like really go 110%, like really like make the extra effort. Like if you're playing basketball, like really get into the weeds, get into the details of the game. Like, you mentioned getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to ride a bike, uh, now like you laugh at it, and you say like, oh, like what were you thinking? But to a certain extent, like it shows your dedication, and it shows that, listen, at the end of the day, like you really wanted this thing, you wanted to get better, and here's what you were willing to do. And I think so many people with whatever they decide to do, whether it's basketball or podcasting, they dip one toe into the into the water, and I don't know if it's this like fear of failure, if it's a fear of judgment, like what are my friends going to think if this podcast doesn't work out and I fail and I start at zero again? What are my friends going to think of Trey if this basketball thing doesn't work out and he doesn't play professionally, he's not making money off of it? Like, so I don't know if it's that. I suspect it's probably partially the fear of failure and the fear of judgment, like that plays into it. And I think the other maybe side of that coin too is like, I think a lot of people are just scared of their true potential. Like sometimes finding out what is my true potential? Like it could be a scary thought, because I think a lot of us view our true potential. Let me put it this way. If your true potential is something that's vague, like maybe I think that my true potential is, I could be whatever, the next Steph Curry. Maybe that's what I think my true potential is, something like super vague. But then I never go out and actually try to do it. It's almost like I'm protecting myself from that failure. Like I'm protecting myself from finding out if I could actually be Steph Curry or not. Newsflash, I'm not, nor will I ever be Steph Curry. But, just using it as a dumb example here, maybe with podcasting, it's like, oh, maybe my true potential is Joe Rogan. But if I don't give it 100%, then I'm protecting myself from actually finding out if my true potential is Joe Rogan. So I don't know if it's maybe partially that, like we're just scared to find out like how far can we actually go. And so I'm curious, like I want to let you respond, but also kind of adding to that, another question for you would be like, at what point did you realize or think about making this an actual career? Like when did that switch flip for you? But I want to let you respond to what I said first.
Yeah, no, I think what clicks in my mind is, and I think a lot of people think like this, is like this idea of failure is like, okay, I waste all my time and I don't amount to anything, and what will other people think of me, and maybe I'll look stupid. That whole concept is so easily deconstructed because your identity is just in the results. And I think that's so much of today's society, of what you see in today's athletes, is who they are is what they produce. And I think so much of who you are doesn't come from what you produce. It comes from the process of learning to produce that thing, the process of learning how to suck. Like if you're gonna sit there and be upset that you didn't play college basketball, whatever you learned if you give it 100% and you don't reach that goal, whatever you learned in that process, it's gonna pay you back somewhere else in life. And I think, again, kind of what you were saying, it has to start with the 100%. But the willing to go 100% comes from the, hey, I'm going to get something out of this simply because I'm going 100%. And that understanding is where real power and real momentum can be built, because it has to start with, I'm going to go 100%. I have this dream. If I don't reach it, I'm going to get a lot of good stuff either way, because I'm thinking from the perspective of I'm looking to get stuff along the way. I'm not doing this to become that. I'm doing this for the process of becoming. And I don't think I've always had that mindset. I think that was developed through a lot of setbacks, because setbacks are great because they basically just yell at you that, hey, whatever you want is not happening right now. So, okay, here you are. You don't have what you want. Reflect on it. Like, think about it. And so that's kind of my 2 cents on what you were saying. But to get to your next question, I didn't think of, so I had this idea of this vague idea of I never had this NBA dream. I never had the NBA dream. I was realistic in my personal potential, capabilities, and maybe call that not having confidence, call that whatever. I was like, I'm seeing other people that are NBA players, and I don't think I'm in the same talent pool as them. And so I had this idea of playing overseas, but it was more so like, I wonder what Europe is like. It was more so this curiosity and not like I want to make a living out of this. Even to my senior year in college, I hated basketball after that season. It was not the season I expected. It was my first time really leaving home because the college I went to was like an hour and a half, hour, 15-minute drive from my house. That whole experience was rough. I had lost my confidence. I mean, I started almost all the games, but just didn't produce and think it just didn't go up to expectation. And had a coach who was demanding and I would say old school, and I'd say not very like personable in terms of like it was just like I don't care about your emotions. Your emotions don't dictate how you play on the court. Just play better type thing. And so I come to just like hate basketball because that whole season, my senior year, I was putting in ungodly amount of hours in the gym and just like destroying my body and like feeling terrible waking up every morning feeling terrible. I got down to when I was at my Division II, my junior year, I was about like 210 pounds. Actually more than I weigh now. Like I was like lifting like crazy on my own. When I got to Grand Canyon, I got down to 190 and I'm like 6'6", 190, and that's like I have a bigger frame too. And it was like I think we did a pinch test and they like were like scared that I would get injured because of course pinch test is not accurate. I watched this whole thing on body fat percentage, but I was at like 4% body fat. And so I was like, after college, I was like, dude, I don't really want to play basketball. Um, I went to, I interviewed at Northwestern Mutual. My dad's an insurance agent. I was like, I'll get into sales. Like, this is a way to make money. Had a master's degree. Always been like really not even studious. It's just kind of like God given natural talent, and kind of school system works for me. It just is very clear. And I got into like the third interview, and it was basically like, hey, you have the job. They sat me down with a guy who went and played overseas, got and quit over 2 years later because I told him, I said, hey, I'm weighing on trying to play professional basketball and starting to work with you guys. And they sat me down as the final interview, and he's like, listen, man, like you're gonna make way more money here. I went over there. It wasn't anything special, and I went home and called my dad. I was like, hey, man, I think I'm going to take this job. It was like a 70K base salary or 65K. And it was like, at the time I was like, dude, this is great. And he was like, dude, that will be there for you whenever you want. And he's like, you got to at least give basketball a shot. And so then I went, I researched like agents and found an agent in my local area in Seattle. Got connected with him. I still was like, again, I'm still 6'6" guard, so it's still like, okay, this is like a high level natural frame. And so even though I average 8 points and 6 rebounds and 3 assists, there was like versatility. There was things that translated to the European game. And so signed with him, started training with him, got connected with the Seattle basketball community, which was like honestly a life changer. All these other pros, all these guys, 10-year pros. There'd be like Luke Sikma in the gym. There would be like Jacob Wiley, all these guys, Aaron Broussard. Like these are like guys that were speaking life into basketball to me. And I saw them making a living. I saw them, oh, they have kids. I said, oh, they have a full life over there. And that was that summer after my senior year, probably the first year, I was like, okay, like I could not just go make a living, I could go make a life over there. And, because family is very important to me, I could build a family over there. And yeah, it was essentially kind of like a split second decision on be a financial advisor and call all my buddies for asking for their money so I can invest it for them, or going across the world, and ended up going across the world.
I have so many follow-up questions, but I'll start
Yeah.
here. I'm always fascinated by decision making and how people make decisions. And I've had athletes on this podcast. I just had Jay Billis on the pod, and he had. I mean, his story is, the pod's going to be coming out soon, but his story is so unique and so interesting because, like, he never thought that he'd be a broadcaster or do anything that he does nowadays. Like, be a college basketball analyst. Like, no way. Like, if you would have asked him 10 years ago, he would have said, "You're crazy." He took these like speech and debate classes in high school. He there's no universe in which he was going to become what he is today. And so I think for him to go from where he was in high school to now, he is the most recognized, not just college basketball analyst, but NBA analyst, is really remarkable. But along that journey, there's a lot of decisions that he had to make, and a lot of different crossroads that he had to pick one thing or the other. And if he would have, maybe made a couple of different decisions, he's not where he is today. So I'm curious, because it seems like for you in your career and your life journey thus far, that decision to go and say, "Hey, I'm going to give this Europe thing a shot, and I'm going to go and try and play professionally," instead of taking the maybe more safe route and take this insurance agent job and stay in the States. Like, just lead me through. I mean, you said it was a split-second decision, but I have to imagine there were things that you were contemplating. So I'm just curious if just lead us through, like, how you actually made the decision. What were the different things that you were thinking about?
Yeah. I think the leading decision was, if I'm going to commit, like I had played basketball for 16, 17 years. If I'm going to do anything in my life, I want it to end on my terms. In order for me to go 100% into something else, that thing has to be, I have to get closure on that circle. And the leading decision was, I knew I felt this emotional misalignment with basketball in general, and I didn't want that to haunt me 3 years into some sales job or some career, because then that opportunity, there's no solving that problem. And I think that was my biggest push. So when my dad kind of gave me that, just like, "Hey man, like, you should try this," it was always there. Like, that was always the want, but there was a kind of, like what we said earlier, there was a lot of fear because of how I just failed in my mind at the Division I level. I transferred from Division II up to Division I, and I was like, first team all conference at Division II. We were like a crazy talented team. I just had like a killer year, and I had made a decision. I want to go Division I to prove to myself that when I was in high school and I thought I could be a Division I player, I can do it. And then I felt I failed, and I also I'm not enjoying basketball. I'm not like, the drive is still there, but there's no fulfillment. There's no contentment with it. All those things just kind of were like, you either get closure on this thing or it sticks with you. And so that subtle nudge from my dad, just once I made that decision, back to what you were saying earlier, I'm going to go 100%. Like, I didn't want to be 1 foot in, 1 foot out, because that's going to lead to you just falling. And I was like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to really do it. And so it's actually funny. My agent had, like, I had a job in Slovakia for like $2,000 a month, and 2,000 take home. So whatever taxes, but not a lot. And I was about to take that, and my agent was like, "Hey, we have this like showcase camp. Come to the camp." I get there. There's these guys that average like 15 in the ACC. There's guys that are overseas already that have 4 years in their resume looking for better jobs. I go there, and I'm for sure I look like a fish out of water. Like, first first you get drafted, and I was like it was like it was like an invite camp, and I had gotten drafted because my agency was kind of like involved in it, and he assigned to this team. It's like they're all like University of Central Florida, Clemson, this, and it was like solid stats. And then there's GCU, 8 points a game, no conference tourney, and I don't necessarily look the part of like a high level hooper. And I remember that first practice, I had got the ball in the wing and I just tried to just go up and jam it. And it was just like we're just feeling each other out. Like, you're not supposed to try and dunk on your teammate in practice. And I like go up. I think I got like fouled pretty bad, but I like rimmed the dunk out. And all of a sudden everything, the whole energy towards me changed. Like all my teammates, all of a sudden they're passing me the ball, letting me dribble the ball up. I'm like, what? and in that little camp, that little showcase, I had gotten like a all showcase team. I think it was like maybe second team or something. But I had a triple double one of the games. And then after that, I had 2 offers in Serbia, which Serbia to Slovakia, kind of the landscape of Europe is some countries are respected incredibly if you produce there. So if you want to like elevate to a like actual income, sometimes you got to maybe take like teams will offer less if it's a better opportunity, but it's clearly a better opportunity to earn more. And Serbia is one of those countries just because it's so respected in basketball. And so I ended up signing there. And right when I signed, I go back to Seattle, start working out with those pro guys. And they're like, oh, I heard you got a deal. Like, heard it's in Serbia, man. You're in for a wild ride. Like, no, you better be in shape, man. Like, you're about to practice. And I was like, okay, man. And I was like, I'm ready for it. And just because I knew I go 100%. I do those things already. And so it ended up being a match made in heaven because Serbians are gritty, hardworking, respect other people that are the same. And it was like a match made in heaven when I got there. So
I can't wait to ask you more about just your first experience playing professional basketball in Serbia. Because I mean, I guess for those who don't know, I'm Serbian. My family is Serbian, so I've been back and I understand what basketball culture is like in Serbia. And we have Jokic, and we've had plenty of other Serbian players who've played in the NBA. So like basketball is like a very Serbian thing. Like everybody grows up on basketball. Like if you didn't touch a basketball when you're young, like if you're a young man in Serbia and you have not played basketball, like probably something wrong. So like everybody's raised on basketball over there. The one thing I did want to say though is when I was listening to the way you made your decision to go to Europe, I was reminded, and I've brought it up numerous times on this podcast, but it's because I love this story so much, about Jeff Bezos's regret minimization framework, which is basically just a fancy way of saying do things that you are not going to regret. And the story that he tells is back in, I think this was the late 90s, early 2000s, like the internet is first taken off. And he's going on a walk with his manager. And I think he's working as an investment banker, making good money. He's doing like a mid-year review with his manager, and his manager turns to him and he says, Jeff, like you're doing all the right things. You're great. You're one of our top performers. If you stay at this company, like you're going to have all the money, all the status, like you're going to be great. Like you are set up well. And Jeff turns to his manager and he says, yeah, that's great. I just can't stop thinking about this internet thing. It's growing at like 3,000% a year. And there seems to be so much opportunity. Like, I don't know, I'm thinking of creating this like online bookstore and just really giving this internet thing a shot. And his manager looks at him like he's absolutely crazy. And I won't bore you with the details because we all know what Jeff ended up deciding to do and what Amazon has turned into. But when he looks back on it now, and he's talked about it at conferences and on other podcasts, is he said, I kind of just looked at like 80-year-old me and what 80-year-old me would regret more. Would I regret not starting Amazon, or would I regret staying at this job? Like, which one would I regret more? And I decided that I would regret not starting Amazon more. Like that would just eat at me way more than if I had stayed at the job. So and that was his framework for making that decision and saying, you know what, like fuck it, I'm gonna start Amazon, I'm gonna try this online thing, this internet thing, and if it doesn't work out, kind of to your point, to what your dad told you, if European basketball doesn't work out, like you're gonna have this job as a salesman, just waiting for you. Like that will always be there. So I thought that was interesting. Is this seems to be maybe a common theme with making big decisions. It's like, which one are you going to regret less, and then just pick that one.
Yeah, and I think too, regret is like, I would say it's one of the more powerful emotions you can feel, and one that if you miss an opportunity or you don't take that leap of faith, can just like really eat at you and make your like day-to-day experience like miserable. And that was, so it was like, yeah, regret minimization, also the fear of what regret would be. Because like I started envisioning my life, okay, if I go to this other job, maybe I'm making good money. Me and my wife, or at the time girlfriend, now wife, we'd have this stable situation. But what if I'm just miserable and all I'm thinking about is like what I should have done, what I could have done, what I had this opportunity, I didn't take it. And yeah, I think it's just, yeah, there's definitely a fear side to regret that to me, is a part of that regret minimization that I think goes into like, I'd say most of my decision making for sure.
Yeah, I think there's this quote, I'm forgetting exactly how it goes, but essentially it's like, if you think the fear of failure hurts or is like this big nasty thing, wait until you get to regret. Because that is 10 times worse. Like, being 80 years old and looking back on your life and regretting a decision maybe that you made, or saying, damn, if only I had given it 110%, maybe my life would have turned out differently. Hurts a lot more than failing and your friends making fun of you. I haven't experienced, I'm not 80, but I can imagine that hurts a lot more. Trey, so let's break this down. So Grand Canyon University, you graduate, you average 8 points a game, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. I think you played about 34 games there, if my research is right. So 2019 NBA draft, do you declare like what?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good question.
Lead us through that.
So that's actually a funny question because there's a lot of guys that declare for the draft that have absolutely zero shot at declaring for the draft and making like this huge announcement. I still remember there's this dude from my Division II, our rival school, declared for the draft. And like he was like the running joke amongst my friend groups, like, oh, I'm just gonna declare for the draft. Like, what are we talking about? And so if you're not a draft pick, if you're not remotely close to being drafted, you don't do that. What you do is, I had a bunch of agents reaching out to me because my archetype, I had enough of a resume because at the Division II level, I showed that I could be like the featured player, average like 17, 9, and 5 in conference, like good shooting splits. So it was like I'd show the potential to be like a guy that could level up overseas, because that's one of the things, like early in your career, you have to be able to be the main guy if you want to make big jumps. So I had these agents reaching out to me. So there was a kind of like, oh, this is the path, you sign with an agent, then they kind of make those connections, because especially you're coming out of college, you're not going to have any connections overseas. You need an agent. I get a lot of guys asking, like, I want to go overseas. You get an agent. And I think that decision on who you sign with is, that first year is potentially one of the most important decisions in your career. There's a lot of things like weigh, like, do you want a bigger agency? Do you want to have very like boutique agency? And there's all these things that go into it. Like you want players in the agencies at the levels you want to go to, all these different things. So basically you sign with an agent, and that summer is just a living hell because you're working like, oh, dude, I could get signed tomorrow. But the reality is the rookies get signed last. It's like a trickle down. The EuroLeague signs players in the next tier because every player is trying to make it to that next tier. So it's like it goes slower for the people at the bottom. And if you're going overseas as a rookie, you're going to start at the bottom unless you were like a Power 5 conference guy. Even Kevin Punter, who's like a EuroLeague stud, like legend overseas, he's 22 a game in the ACC. And he started in the Greek league's good, but just a Greek league team. Or no, he was even in Poland. He was in Poland before, which is like, it's a solid level. It's a solid level, don't get me wrong. But it was like just a Polish team. So it's like, it comes with it. You're going to start at the bottom. You're no longer a college basketball player. You're a pro player. And so, yeah, your agent kind of does the work for you. Then hopefully you have a couple different options. Most of the players have like 1 to 2, and it's really not a matter of the option. It's more a matter of what you do once you get there. But again, I had the Slovakia and 2 teams in Serbia, and so I chose opportunity. And over 2,000 was more. I was making $1,200 a month in Serbia, all cash. So, yeah. So yeah.
That's how the Serbians do it, baby. All cash.
Dude, I have
only cash.
Dude, I have some crazy stories about Serbia.
Dude, well, if you don't mind sharing, I'd love to get into them. But I do have to ask. So before we get there, though, one thing that I just didn't think about, and this really kind of sprouts 2 different questions, is when you're breaking down like these different leagues and like I guess the talent and the competition in each league and what that means for you as a resume builder. Like, you had mentioned Serbia is one of these countries that is widely respected in Europe. I mean, all around the world, but in Europe, certainly in basketball. And so like, even if you go to a worse team, like you play in the Serbian league, better competition, like it looks better in your resume versus if you go to a different country. Like that just never crossed my mind. Like I never even thought about that or considered it, honestly.
Yeah. And there's like ways, like obviously like some of the social media channels and like news channels will like rank the leagues. But they're not ranking down to the bottom. They'll give you like a top 10. But outside of that, kind of like good barometers of how strong the league is how many teams in the league play international competition. That's kind of like historically a sign of a solid team. Then you have to look at, okay, how much do most of these leagues pay? Okay, what style of basketball do they play? There's like a huge, massive knowledge you need to know about kind of overseas basketball. For example, Serbia is one of those countries that if you play well in and produce, you can move up because they play like a very European style of basketball. B, they have such a rich basketball culture that there's actually eyes on that league just because there's so many Serbian prospects. Like in my league, on my first team, I was kind of like a 2-3, but the other like 2-3, he was 16 and he actually just graduated from UCLA last year, and this will be his rookie year. We had another guy that was like our backup 3-man, was 15. He's playing at Wyoming right now. So because Serbia has a lot of these prospects, these bigger leagues will be looking at the league, and that's how. So there's all these different kind of dynamics that go into it. Like, for example, I played in Portugal, which is, you could say, I'd say probably a little better than that Serbian domestic league, because there's also like regional leagues and all these different things. But my team in Portugal was like by far the best team in Portugal, and the bottom half of the league, it was like you could show up and win by 40, and like our backup 5, our bench 5 could beat 70% of the teams in that league. But we played international and Champions League. We had a bunch of we had a good budget. We were able to pay higher talent players to come there to like a lower level because the lifestyle was incredible. You got to play in that international league. Like you get to probably win a championship. There's all these different dynamics that go even into the structure of the league itself. Like you could be playing in Poland with like me and another person could be playing in Poland, but the guy that's on the first place team in the league and the guy that's on the last place team, it could be completely different talent, could be completely different resume, could, there's all these dynamics that go into it.
What were some of your, I guess, assumptions about playing in Europe? I'm curious. I guess really the question is what you thought playing in Europe would be like coming in, and now that you've been there for some time, kind of what the reality is, like how those two states differ when you were first coming in, and now that you've been there for a while, like what you've actually realized.
Yeah, I think when I first got over here, I was like, this is going to be a freaking grind. And I was like, I'm just going to grind this out and until I get to some level. So like how my lifestyle and my life is now was not necessarily what I expected or what I thought I could get to. Like now I'm comfortable living in Europe. Sometimes I like it better. My pay is great. It's very good. But at the start I was like, oh dude, I'm gonna have to go over there and like, just get it out the mud. And it was just gonna be get it out the mud until the end. And that's still a lot of my mindset. But now like it's like, oh, I can actually build a life here. Like, because my first year I was there, me and my girlfriend, now wife, were long distance. I was like, oh, this is super isolating. Oh, this language barrier is so overwhelming. I was scared to leave my apartment. Everything just felt so overwhelming. As you navigate it, you kind of become comfortable with this lifestyle. So like when I have friends visit, they're like super uncomfortable. Like they don't even know how to like order at a restaurant. And I'm just over here like, I'll just point at it and I just have it down to a T. There's no anxiety. And they're over here like, can you tell them this? And I'm like, dude, you can just tell them. Like, you just have to be good at like body language and all these things. So I think one of the biggest things is the lifestyle. Now it's like, it's a lot different than what I expected, I would say. And then some things I think I underestimated were how hard it is to see life go on in the States. See my parents get older, see my sister's life developing. She's going through these things. I can't be there for her. Missing birthdays, missing hard moments. So yeah, I think I didn't expect how much that would kind of eat at me and how much it just doesn't really go away.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because even, my parents, I now live in Florida, but my parents used to live in California. They recently moved to Florida as well. But like even doing like the California Florida thing, which is a cross country flight, like it's like, damn, can't always be there for my parents' birthday, can't always be there for family events. And that's a 5-hour flight. I mean, again, no, it's not like this. It's like this super short distance, but I mean, Europe to the States is like a whole different beast. I mean, you're multiple time zones, probably multiple layovers, 9-10 hour journey. So it's like, I can only imagine. And I mean, I still have family in Europe, so I feel you to an extent, like missing out on some of those events and just not being able to catch up with them. What do you think is the biggest misconception about European basketball and just the EuroLeague?
Yeah, especially the EuroLeague. I think there's this misconception that that it is lesser than the NBA. I think it is very much lesser in talent, but I think you could take 50 to 60 guys in the EuroLeague that could probably fill 50 to 60 roster spots in the NBA. But I think the EuroLeague is a different product altogether than the NBA. It's structured so much better, in my opinion, for the game-to-game fan experience because of the way the season's structured. Every single game is like, you play each team twice, and every single game is like there's a point difference on the line for all the seeding. There's also a nationalistic aspect to each team, whereas in the U.S. it's like, oh, I'm a fan of the Kings. I live in Sacramento, I'm a fan of the Kings. But it's so different if like, oh, I'm in Greece, I'm a fan of Olympiacos. This is like my country. So like when Olympiacos plays Paris, it's like Greece versus France. That type of the environments that creates and the pride that players play with, I think is like different. So I think everyone's like the EuroLeague is the second best league in the world. Talent wise, yes. But for me, they're not like directly comparable because they're just completely different products.
It's a good point about the national aspect of it all. And I wonder too, I mean, you alluded to it, but I'm assuming a big reason why, like, there's always those like videos on TikTok or Instagram. It's like, European fans versus American fans, especially when it comes to basketball. And like, you go to some of these arenas and there's like, fireworks inside the arenas and they have flares and like all these things are going wild. But I have to imagine a big part of that is just the fact, like you mentioned, like you are almost representing your country, especially when you're playing these like international games, right, within the EuroLeague and all that. Like, I guess that's a good point. Because yeah, and I also feel like it's one of those debates. It's like, all right, I mean, European fans are maybe more passionate about basketball. Like, all right, like, cool. It's just one of those debates that I feel like it's kind of useless. Like, what's the point? There's like, at least the MJ versus LeBron debate, there's like some, like, there's some facts that we can pull up or some game tape or something. But like, it's like what fan base is more passionate? Like, I don't know, man. Like,
yeah, what's the metric?
yeah, how do you define that? Like, by how loud they get, by the amount of flares that are in the arena? Like, I don't know.
But it is clear to me, like, I don't want to get this twisted. The NBA, like, talent-wise, is like, it's the leader of the pack. There's no, when people are like, oh, the EuroLeague and it, like a EuroLeague team could go play an NBA team. They could beat an NBA team on a random night in an 82 game season. They could do that. Stylistic differences, talent is less, but maybe they play more like togetherness and it's just harder to guard. But if you take an NBA team playing in the finals and a EuroLeague team playing in the finals, and you're getting the best versus the best, NBA team wins every time. Like, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
And Europeans love to try and bring this argument up, like, bring the Lakers to the Final Four in Panathinaikos. And I guarantee you, also have such a huge audience. If they heard me say this, they're going to be all pissed. But it's just the truth. And I think I can say that without, confidently.
Yeah. It's like, I don't think Benfica is beating the 2016 Warriors. Like,
no, sir. No, sir.
Like,
it is a different conversation when you're looking at like a Real Madrid who's like a budget's like they can pay players millions. So you're basically taking a lot of these roster spots, like maybe 11th, 10th man in the NBA, maybe a guy that played some, and you're giving him ultimate freedom and you're giving him a role and like a purpose. That player has the talent. You know what I'm saying? They fit in that NBA talent pool, and now you're giving them freedom. You look at a guy like Kendrick Nunn is just torching overseas. He's like virtually like he's like almost unguardable. He puts it like the numbers he's putting up in Europe is like pretty unreal, right? And there's like probably a Kendrick Nunn archetype for like each team, like a Shane Larkin. That's another NBA guy. You have a bunch of studs. Like Nikola Mirotic is like a killer in Europe, and these guys could play in the NBA, like undoubtedly, but they're taking maybe equal or a little less money to play in Europe, but to have purpose, to have a big role. And that like brings out a different side to a player that I think, they can compete at least for sure.
Yeah. I'm curious, as someone who obviously played in America at the collegiate level and now you're playing professionally in Europe, I feel like you'd be the perfect person to ask this question of just, you alluded to a little bit, the stylistic differences between European basketball and American basketball. And now there's this talk, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, how a lot of the best players in the NBA are international now, specifically European. And so now there's talks of, well, what are the Europeans doing in terms of how they're teaching kids to play basketball versus how are kids learning to play basketball here in America, and like some of those differences and the AAU progression and all that stuff. So I think competition is always good because it forces you to take a look at what you're doing and whether or not it's right. And I think American basketball is having a little bit of that, where it's like, okay, are we truly teaching kids how to play the game the right way, or is it a lot more individualized? Like a perfect example that I think of is the last Olympics, right? Like, Serbia versus the United States in the semifinals. Like on paper, that should be a blowout. Yes, we have Jokic, we have Bogdanovic, like we have NBA guys, we have the league MVP. Like we're no slouches, but I mean, when you compare us to KD and Steph and LeBron, I mean, these are just on paper, it should not be a close matchup. And yet we almost beat them. Like it came down to the last, minute 30, whatever it was of that game. And I remember I was talking to someone about it on the podcast, and they're like, yeah, because when you watch Serbia play, like they all play together, like they play as a unit, like everybody knows their roles. Nobody's trying to, do too much. Nobody's trying to go outside of their role too. Like everyone's kind of within their own zone. Like everyone has a very clear idea of what they're doing. So I'm curious, like just your take on the differences between American and European basketball and what you've seen from these countries.
Yeah, I think the two most obvious things that I think a lot of people will bring up, I'll bring up quick, is just some rule differences. No defensive three in the key. You have to maneuver and manipulate the help side defender a lot more in Europe. So you'll have a lot of like misdirection sets to try and drag a player out of position. Should be in that help side spot. I'd say physicality. The NBA is very physical, don't get me wrong, but there's also there's incidental contact that will be called quicker. Whereas in Europe, especially when games get rowdy and it can get like really, really physical, and they'll let a lot of stuff go. And then like what you said about that continuity in Europe, I would say the general is 5 players trying to score the ball for their team. 5 players working together to score the ball. In the NBA, a lot of the times, it's give it to one player that's incredible at scoring the ball and let him do that in that moment. So they're kind of like picking, whereas Europe is kind of like this more I'd say the word is continuity. But there's also, I think in Europe, and it's very similar to the NBA, is they hunt mismatches. They if they see an advantage, they're just going to go after it. And then I also think there's just a big difference in terms of coaching, not philosophies, but I'd say coaching control. You look at like Tomas Izolo for the Grizzlies. When I was in Germany, I played against him. He was on like kind of like our big brother team. We got 4th, they got 1st. We ran the exact same scheme as them. My coach basically thought he invented this scheme. Izolo said he invented it, whatever. But we ran the same thing, and they crushed us every time because they had better personnel at it, and they were just better at the system. But the way European coaches, they have a full-blown system. If you don't do it, I'm sorry, I don't care who you are, you're coming out the game. You see now the disagreement with Izolo and Ja Morant. The way coaches talk to players is a lot more free. Like they'll just like rip players and expect you to like military fall in line, salute, and not let it affect your play. Whereas I'd say, I don't know if it's babying in the US, but it's just like when guys get tested in the US, I think it's less direct and less like, it's more, I'd say maybe it's more emotionally intelligent in this regard. In Europe, they don't care how it comes off. Do what I'm asking you to do, and and if you don't do it, you're gonna hear about it. And I don't care how I tell you about it. I think in the US it's not more fragile. It's just a different style of communication, I'd say.
I've seen this thrown around on the internet. people always say that like European basketball is like higher IQ basketball. Do you think that there's any validity to that?
It's different IQ. I think the NBA has incredibly complex and high level basketball schemes, understandings. Um, but I think in the NBA, there's more often go get a bucket, and that's deemed as less IQ. Understanding how to score on your defender and doing those things is very high level IQ. It's just different. Whereas European IQ is always that five guys figuring out how to score the ball. And where the NBA is very much like, let's find our advantage and just take it. And we want it in our best player's hand on that advantage. And sometimes that's Kawhi Leonard at the elbow with 2 stunt defenders. That's our best advantage. Whereas Europe doesn't have the luxury of that elite level of talent. It has incredible talent, but I'm talking like otherworldly talent that they can't do as simple of isolations, especially with the 3 in the key. But I say there's also a lot of similarities. There's a lot of pick and roll. There's a lot of, you're seeing the Thunder do it a lot. And I think it's the other team I was watching the other day. I forget. But the Thunder did a lot in their championship run. It's these like clear cuts where it's like Shai's got an ISO at the top, and like the slot guy will cut to kind of move that stunt defender. And there's a lot of that in the EuroLeague as well.
I think you brought up a really good point about ISO and just the level of talent. I mean, listen, I'm not trying to degrade anyone in the European League by any means. Like, again, this is in no way supposed to be the takeaway from this conversation. But Steph Curry as an ISO player or Kyrie Irving as an ISO player, right? They're on a different level than most of the EuroLeague guys. So when all else fails, and you don't have a KD or a Steph or a Tatum to bail you out, like failing is not really an option. Like you can't, like you really have to give it your maximum effort for the play that you're running to work out, because you just don't have, again, a Curry, a Kyrie, a Tatum, a KD, LeBron, pick your favorite ISO guy to go and just get you a bucket. Like, yeah. Is that like an appropriate classification?
Yeah. I think a little bit is missing the point, though, because these teams do have one of those guys. Almost every team in the EuroLeague has one of those guys that can do it at the EuroLeague level, but they can't do it as good as Steph Curry, so they're not going to be that guy at the NBA level. Like Kendrick Nunn is like James Harden level ISO scorer in Europe, but he's not that in the NBA. So if he was in the NBA, he'd have to find a role. It'd be a little different. And I mean, he had a year he averaged 20 in the NBA, but it's just like, it's different. I would say it's the supporting cast and what Europe values in those players compared to what the States values in those players. You can have guys that are like Kendrick Nunn, go get a bucket, that's on your bench in the NBA, and that's his role. In Europe, you're going to have less of those guys on your bench and more guys that are going to fall kind of in line and understand the game at a super high cerebral level and do all those other things right. But you also have to think, in Europe, every guy that elevates to the top, every American at least, they destroyed at those lower levels. Like they've averaged 20 against pros, but their ability to adapt and that's kind of why you see some guys from America come over and they just crazy talent, boom, back in the G League, or crazy talent, boom, done playing, because it's the adaptability. It's being able to understand different schemes year to year and country to country. You know, like how I played in Portugal stylistically is night and day difference than how I was playing this year in Lithuania. So it's like your ability to adapt and adjust is, I think, that is the marquee trait of a high-level European player.
Maybe this will be a fun question. If I made up a role for you specifically, and I said, Trey, you are in charge of American basketball training, whatever you want to call it, wherever this role is called. Haven't thought of a name, but you are in charge of teaching the youth how to play basketball in America. what would you bring over from Europe? Like, what are some of the good things that European basketball does, especially at a young age, that you would try to implement in America? And then on the flip side of that, congrats, you have a new role. You are now the European leader
Yeah.
for basketball training. So same question, but what would you implement from American basketball into European basketball?
Okay, so first America to Europe or Europe to America first?
Let's do Europe to see, now I'm confusing myself. Okay, let's do America to Europe. So you're the head of European basketball training and
Okay.
you're implementing American best practices.
Okay. That's a very good question. I think first thing is American strength and conditioning coaches are, I'd say, top of the top. I think the overall level is more consistently high. I think you have some in Europe that can kind of be in these older trains of thought. So I think just in terms of strength training, conditioning, stuff like that, America is top of the top. In terms of pushing the needle forward and all that as well, even at the college level, at the high major Division I level, you have some absolute just killers of strength coaches that are just absolutely incredible. I would say in America, even you see it on YouTube now, this like one-on-ones like basketball stuff. I think there's something to that, and that ability to like just go get a bucket and just playing a little bit more one-on-one, and just this idea of play. Because in Europe it's structured. Like in Europe, you can't go to LA Fitness and hoop with your boys. You can't go find an open run. That doesn't exist, and it's always dumbfounded. Like I'm dumbfounded by it.
Wait, what do you mean by that? Like you can't just show up to a gym and play?
No, 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 no. They don't even have an LA Fitness. Every basketball court is owned by like a club.
I
There's
see. Okay.
very little like just community gyms. If it's a gym, it's like a weight room.
Right.
So if you want to get an open run, you would have to rent the gym, and like it would be that you're talking to a club. It's just because it's so divided like this. So there's no just play unless it's outdoors. And so I think there's this huge value in American just playing basketball with your buddies. Does
Hmm.
it sometimes get bad habits? Yes, but this creativity and flow and like Kyrie's crazy creativity on the court, that comes from the just playing and just like and like no structure, like playing 21 you and two buddies. Like in Europe, it's always so structured and it's always so team trainings. You're with a club at a young age. And so that gives you that structure for skill development. And you better hope you have a good skill development coach there. And that can be a huge needle mover. But there's no like broad version of that, you know? There's some people like, but just the overall amount, it's not available to the local kid. Um, so I think that's what I'd bring. I'd bring play to Europe from America, and their strength and conditioning overall is higher. And then if I was bringing Europe concepts to America, the first thing that they're incredible at is getting their players to learn the game at a high level from a young age. They do a lot of low hoop, like at younger ages. They always play the low hoop, smaller basketball, so you can do more things. Um, I think also kids are learn how to the broader cerebral version of the game more. Like they don't they don't work on the one-on-one moves as much because that's what you get when you're playing just with your boys. But they're like always in these team practices and it's so structured. And I think there's some of that needs to migrate to the US. And I also think like this play more 5-on-5 games is not the key to development. I think more 3-on-3 is good. The more time you can have the ball in your hands, the more time you can see how to move in this small space or something that like that is good. But in youth development in America, you need to change the constraints, lower the goal, smaller basketball, more half court, uh, less 5-on-5 and listen to the kids' bodies a little more too. Like, I think that's an aspect you have to implement a little bit, because see so many injuries, both Europe and NBA. I think this is across the board. Is like sometimes enough is enough. Like, work 110%, but sometimes that is like, you take a break, like recover, be a kid, go play some baseball, go play some football, like whatever it is, you know.
The smaller basketball and like smaller hoop stuff or lower hoop stuff is super interesting because when I was playing water polo in high school, I went to Serbia one summer to visit family, and my dad had a connection with one of the water polo coaches in the area, and he said, "Why don't you go to one of their practices in Serbia?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And the entire practice, they used this like super small ball, and I remember at the time thinking like, all right, like, are these guys like, like, are they not hit puberty? Like, are their hands not big enough? Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
And I was like too embarrassed to ask. So, like, I told my dad, I was like, hey, can you like ask them like what's happening? Like, why are they using the super small ball? And the coach basically said the same thing that you alluded to. It's like, no, we really want to make sure that they understand the game, that they understand the fundamentals, that they understand the X's and O's without the pressure of like, oh, I also have this huge ball that I somehow need to grip, and I'm not
Yeah.
physically developed enough to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was super interesting. It seems like it may be like a common theme across multiple sports within Europe. And I actually really like that. It's like, hey, as you're growing up, you're going to have some physical limitations that you obviously will not experience once you hit your peak athleticism. So let's just create an even playing field so that you can learn the game without the added pressure of like, oh, there's also this 10-foot hoop and this ball is super big. And oh, I also need to learn how to shoot, but I'm super uncomfortable because the ball is super big. Like so many, like so much added
Yeah,
pressure for no reason, honestly.
for sure. Yeah, no, I think that's kind of like this, like the very tip of the iceberg of this like constraint led approach is like, you can control these variables and the environment that you put athletes in so that you can get more specific things out of their time, you know?
Mm.
Um, yeah. Yeah.
Trey, I did want to ask you. So I know you talk about it on your YouTube channel, and you're very candid, very honest about some of the financial aspects of playing in Europe. And I'm sure for those unfamiliar with kind of how it works in the Euro League, it'd probably be beneficial for the audience to hear just your experience with the financial side of things. You can dive into
Yeah.
specifics if you want, or not, but just generally how it works. What was your financial situation and what is it today?
Yeah. Yeah. So, like any job, when you're, when you're starting, you're going to most of the time start at a very low salary, and it's based off your resume in college. So, um, and they respect less the resume in college than the resume you have in Europe. So the more you can build that resume in Europe, most likely the more money you're going to make. And things that build a resume: stats, winning, and yeah, I'd say stats and winning, and then reputation. Those are the three things. Those three things will get you paid. Um, if you have all three in one year, you can make a huge jump. And um, that's kind of what I did. My first year was making 1,200, and then I think every year for the next 3 years, I either doubled or tripled the number from the year before. And then there's kind of like levels, and with each level, like, goes up in financials, and you have guys in the EuroLeague making millions. Um, you have some guys in the EuroLeague making around 300,000, and then kind of, again, it varies country to country. You go to a country like Turkey, you could play on the worst team and you could make in 300,000. It's just certain countries, it's all kind of different, and you have to evaluate each time you sign what is important to you. Is money the most important thing? Is opportunity? And that's the constant back and forth, and that's the hard part of the overseas lifestyle, is because most contracts are 1 year. That summertime is like decision making time. So you're having that constant Jeff Bezos regret minimization over and over again, and it makes for this very like unsettled feeling, especially in the summers. Um, cool parts in Europe, when I give you those numbers of how much they're making, that is after taxes. So it's like take home. And the clubs, when you negotiate, you're negotiating after tax numbers. So club pays for the tax, and then when you go to the States, the number that you like, your salary that you agreed on is different than the pay stub you get. So when you file your taxes in the States, you say, okay, let's say this year I was making 150,000, then okay, maybe my taxes were, the number that they're going on is 270,000. And so you don't have to pay taxes in the States, essentially, depending on if the country you're playing in, the tax rate is equal or higher than that of the US. So, for example, I heard this story of a player who signed in Monaco and thought he did just spent his money however he wanted and didn't understand his tax rate is 0, and where he fell in the tax bracket is huge in the States. So then he goes home to this huge tax bill. So that's something you have to consider. So maybe, a country like Monaco, or a place like Monaco where tax rate is 0 and you sign for $1 million, let's say you're taxed at 37%, you're making 630,000, but then you sign in, let's say, Germany for 630,000, you're probably making some money back because their tax rate will be so high. When you file your taxes in the States, you'll get actually a foreign tax credit on that. So then when you make the decision next year, you can maybe choose a Monaco or choose a Serbia or something with a low tax rate. But I think there is a good middle high kind of salary range in Europe. I'd say mine's about middle high. That you can make more than a good living. You can make make an amount that doesn't make sense for you to stop playing. For example, like if I were to stop playing, I would go home to the States and be like, whoa, like I have to change my lifestyle. I have to change spending habits. I bought a house. I have a mortgage. I have to really shuffle things around. And so that's interesting. And then there's also an aspect to it. You can get cut, and there's not a lot of player protection over here. So you have to be really careful with countries, with their governments, with reputations of teams. Some teams don't pay. Some, like I had an experience, I'm not going to name the team or country, where I went home back to the States and they owed me over 35,000. And I was just like, okay, well, this sucks. Like, now I'm going to ask for that money while I'm leaving. Like, I go home. And so we had to negotiate and find a way to sign another contract, and they had to pay it out. But you can also take them to court, and it can just get really messy really fast. But then there's situations like you could get injured. Maybe there's a clause in your contract. Some teams you'll get injured, and maybe they're supposed to keep paying you, but they'll find a way that you breach the contract, so they'll try and make it like a rightful you breach the contract so they don't have to pay you. There's all these nightmare stories I've heard over here, even at the highest levels. And so it's kind of it's just like a problem that's pervasive. Like, it's just everywhere. So that's some of the stuff you have to deal with financially. But most of the time you'll get, at the lowest levels, sometimes you won't get a car or a house paid for. But for the most part, you'll get your house covered, your car, your flights. Some clubs will cover food. It's all things that kind of get negotiated in the contract. So the number you sign for is like the number that's going into your bank account, which is nice.
I'm sure we could spend probably hours talking about just the financial side of all this, because it sounds super interesting. But I know we're tight on time. And I do have 2 more questions that I've been dying to ask you. First, I do have to ask about the sports gambling scene in Europe. And the reason I ask is obviously we've had the recent scandals with Chauncey Billups and Damon Jones and these poker games and all this wild stuff, and Terry Rozier and getting with the mafia, which I thought the mafia wasn't a thing anymore. Apparently they're still a thing. And so there's this added kind of scrutiny on sports gambling. I've stated my opinion both on my social media and on this podcast. My personal opinion, just to restate it and maybe frame this conversation for us, is I think ultimately sports gambling is a personal choice, just like drinking alcohol or smoking cigarettes. You understand the downsides. Like, you understand it's not healthy for you, but at the end of the day, it's your own personal choice. Like, if you want to risk your money, who am I to, tell you, hey, Trey, don't do that. I can maybe offer you advice or show you, some of, again, the downsides, but it's your personal choice. What I have a problem with is how prevalent it has become in society, especially in America. Like, you turn on any game and there's banners. There's, hey, the line started at -5.5. It's now 2.5. Like, it's everywhere. Like, you turn on the TV, LeBron and Kevin Hart are doing DraftKings commercials. Every sports podcast is and even non-sports podcasts seemingly is being sponsored by one of DraftKings, FanDuel, whoever. So my problem is like the prevalence of all of it and how much is being pushed in everyone's faces. And honestly, it's a bit of a scammy industry too. When you think about like the first time sign up bonus, it's like, hey, first time bet is $100, risk free or whatever. Like, it. That's where my problem is just how prevalent it's become and how much we as a society are pushing it. I'm curious though, on the European side, like, what has been your experience with sports gambling and kind of how it's woven into that culture?
Yeah. So I got a couple stories. Most of these will be from like a player's perspective, but I think my biggest issue with sports gambling is it's not the same. It's hard to compare to alcohol or something like that, because you are actually gambling on another human's actions, or you're making taking some risk or some calculated decision on another human's actions. And in sports betting, when money gets involved like that, the humanity just gets removed from the players. Um, I don't know how you solve that problem, but it's just the nature of the beast, and I think that is the problem. At least from like a player's perspective, the amount of messages I receive after games, it's just like ridiculous. It also varies a lot country to country. Um, when I was in Serbia, my second year, I was on like this wildly consistent streak. I think I scored over 20 for like 18 or 19 games. And guys were in my DMs like, "We love you. Keep going, machine." Like you're just because like I just had such a clear role. I knew exactly and my whole life had been consistent. I had my systems, I had everything dialed, and it was like just showing on the court. And the sports bettors were in my DM loving me. And so that was a wild experience. But then of course the one game I only scored in single digits one time the whole year, and it was like 50 messages, like just the most inhumane things. And of course it's part of it. I also have the decision to read the message, not read the message, whatever. But it doesn't feel, it takes the purity of I don't know if the word's purity. It takes it makes it so much so it makes sports so business. It makes it such a business that the childlike joy of playing your sport it just piles on top of all the other things trying to like kind of like stamp out that flame. So from a player's perspective, it's weird. So there's been a lot in Europe, especially in these lower levels. A lot of the players aren't making sustainable incomes, so you have a huge amount of player gambling scandals. It's like wildly prevalent. When I was in Serbia, there's like bottom teams were just well known for like putting whole salaries on games. So like they would make a month's salary, let's say they make 1,000, they'd play a different team and they put all that a couple of guys on the team would put all that money on them losing, and they would lose by like 40. And it was just a common thing. I don't know. They didn't necessarily maybe give it a friend and they put it on, but it just wasn't regulated like that. Like where in America, it's like, oh, there's this absorbent amount of bets on Jonte Porter's under. Okay, we find it. It's not that regulated in Europe. So I don't know if that regulation will increase, but there was a player my rookie year that got caught. He was leading the league in assists, and he was on a team that was probably paying their best player maybe like $3K a month. and this guy was pulling up in an Audi i8 to the games. And I remember asking him, she was like, "Yo, like, how is this guy? How like I knew his career too. I was like, I know he hasn't made a lot of money in his career either." And this guy, and when it turns out, he was like their starting PG, and he got banned from the league for life because he was like putting all his money on the games, and like he's a great player, but it was just that's what he did, and it's crazy.
That's so funny. That's so funny, man.
I
I
remember
mean,
it was orange too, and so it was like, dude, it wasn't even nothing about it was subtle. Like you're driving an orange Audi i8, and it's like, dude, what?
just living the
What is going
dream.
on? Yeah, dude.
I mean, listen, we laugh about it, but I think you hit on a really important point. And I put out this rant on Instagram, and I basically hit on the same point that it takes away from the joy of the game. It takes away from that childlike experience that you talked about. Like I remember growing up, and I looked up to these athletes. Like I looked up to these basketball players. Like it was like I want to be like this guy. I want to be like that guy. Then you read about their story, and it's like, oh, they grew up in this surrounding, and they were able to make it out and do all this, and it's so inspiring and so motivational. And now, like my concern is like kids are growing up and they're like, oh, did LeBron score 21 points so that my parlay hits? And they're kind of missing we're missing the mark with sports. Like sports, yes, it's fun. You have bragging rights with your friends. It could either be the highest of highs or the lowest of lows. But at the end of the day, like I think the reason so many people look up to athletes, myself included, is because oftentimes these guys or these girls like had to go through so much adversity to get to where they are and push through so much pain and their stories are inspirational. Like they should be these motivating stories that we can pass on to younger generations and say, hey man, I know times are tough right now, but guess what? So and so grew up in a similar environment and they were able to work out of it and give that person some inspiration to maybe go and do the same thing. So like that's my concern, especially with the younger generation. Listen, I'm 28, so like I guess maybe I'm less of a concern, but it's just like the young kids growing up and turning on Sports Center, and it's like, hey, here's your same game parlay. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem right to me.
Yeah, and I think as we hit on earlier in the podcast too, it just kind of like reaffirms this results-based society. And like again, results pay. That makes sense. But when we preach it in this perspective, the athlete, the kid that's like trying to make something of themselves is not understanding what it takes to get from A to B and how
Yep.
much growth and value is in that process. Like they only think it's worth it if they achieve the goal. And it's like, that's just missing the point completely of what sports has done in my life and what I think the true power of sports is.
I couldn't agree more, man. And that's why, not putting myself on a pedestal here at all, but that's what I try to do with this podcast is like try to give people insight into like who these athletes are. Like for somebody out there who may be listening to this, maybe they're in college right now, maybe they're in high school, and maybe they have the same thoughts that you did. Like, hey, I don't think I'm good enough to make it to the NBA, but there's this entirely different, also great, journey that you can take to Europe and still become a great player and live a great life like you are, and still, play basketball for a living and do all these great things, and not consider yourself a failure because you didn't get drafted to some NBA team. So I think there's a lot of inspiration that can be found in your journey, man. And I hope, that's one of the things that people take away from this pod. I know it's late for you in Lithuania, but I do have one last question for you, just because we talked about it a little bit earlier. It could be one story, just for the sake of time, if you'd like. If you want to give us more, that's cool too. But any stories that stand out to you, funny, whatever, crazy, either from playing in Serbia, and it doesn't just have to be Serbia. I don't want us to be like a Serbia only podcast, but Serbia, anywhere in Europe, any stories that stand out to you that you want to share?
Okay. Let's see. I'll go with this one. This was crazy. But so in Serbia, I'm sure you know the north and south of Serbia are very different.
Mm-hmm.
Towards the south is more Islam, and
Mm-hmm.
towards the rest is mainly Eastern Orthodox. And we had a game in the South, and in Serbian politics too, there's like kind of multiple parties, but there's like people in one party basically believes in Eastern Orthodox, and then the other is Islam. It's not just as much, I guess, bipartisan as the United States, but it's there. And my coach, he was a coach, but before he was a coach, like he loved basketball, but he's also like involved in the government in some ways. And I don't want to get too much in that. I don't want to get myself in trouble. But so we had a game in the South, and we and my coach was one of those guys that like he's like a nationalist, a Serbian nationalist. So like we would day of the game, we're stopping at a church on the way down, and he's giving us a history lesson. So the way down, we stop at a church, explains everything. Showed like some what's it like what's the sword called, like a scimitar, like the
Oh yeah.
Turkish scimitars. Like there's literally slashes on the walls of the church when they were like trying to get into to I guess raid during the Ottoman Empire. And like basically I'm not reciting history great, but anyways, it was powerful, right? And we go down this game. The city's completely different. They have like the Islam prayers going. That was the first time I'd heard that. And we get in the game, and it was during COVID, during the pandemic, so there was no fans in the stands, but one guy in the stands, and he was dressed in all black, kind of like suit type thing, and playing the game. And this guy is going nuts, like, and it turns out he's the GM of the other team, or the president, GM or president. He's going crazy, like I'm talking crazy. And I'm kind of like, whatever, this guy's kind of a nut. And we're winning. I think I had like 18 points at half. And I'm just killing. And my coach keeps screaming at me. He's like dogging me. And we're up 20. And I'm looking at my team. It's like, yo, what's going on? Why are you so mad? And they're like, don't worry, bro. Like everything will be okay. Don't worry. And then we go to halftime. We come out for the third quarter. That guy's shouting, going nuts. Our coach is going nuts just on the players. And then they stop the game. We all have to go hide in the locker room, coach included. They escort the guy out. And I'm talking to my team. It's like, yo, what was going on with the guy? He's like, he was saying that the moment my coach leaves the gym, that he's going to be killed. Like I have 100 guys waiting for you outside. There's no way you're leaving this gym alive, because they were like political enemies and almost like religious enemies. And I'm looking at this is a 15-year-old kid, our backup small forward, telling me this. I'm going, what did you just say? He's like, yeah, that's why coach is freaking out. He feels like his life's on the line. So we were literally in a life and death game, and we're winning by like 20. And I'm just bearing the full brunt of it. He's going full force on me. And then ended up, we leave our bus. When we were leaving, there's like, we had to get like a police escort. I'm like leaving the gym. There's like 6 policemen around us. Get in the bus, and there's people just banging on our bus all the way out. I'm like, how did little Trey Drechsel from Woodville, Washington, get caught in the middle of this century-long feud? It was crazy.
Dude, that's what I love about like Serbian sports is like it's never just basketball.
Oh.
Like
No.
is that is the most Serbian story of all time. Like, you know, like in America, like you have all this, like, you know, keep politics out of sports, like all this, like, dude, in Serbia, like, and I'm sure other like Eastern European countries and like other countries in Europe, you know, might be a little similar, but I just know because I obviously being from it's like it's so funny. That's so funny, man.
Okay, I got 2 more for you. I'll try to make them pretty quick. So,
all right.
The other one is, so my dog, when I was in Serbia my second year, we got our dachshund in Serbia. We got him off like the Serbian Craigslist. He was like
it's a dangerous game.
Yeah, dangerous. 50 euros for a dachshund, which is like unbelievable. We got he had no shots, no nothing. We got it all covered for like the total price for him was like 200 euros, which is like unbelievable. And had my teammate go drive, picked him up in like a shoebox. It was just like anyways, super sick. And anyways, we have him for like a couple months, and we're going up to I think it was in Montenegro. We were in this Adriatic league, and we go for like a bubble. It was during COVID as well, and we're playing this team, and I'm like, I'm just like dominating the team. I was like really good, really on my game that year. I was just kind of just running, just destroying everyone, and had like 20 or something at half. And their big man, the guy who kept hedging out on the screens, was kind of like this oaf. Like he's kind of like 6'6", like probably like 230, like sturdy Serbian build. But I just kept getting around him, going in, and the hedge just wasn't working. And I'm shooting free throws, and this guy's like on the block, and he goes, Trey. I'm like about to shoot, and I'm like looking at him like, what? He's like, hey, you're welcome for your dog. And I'm like, I looked at him, I said, I shot the free throw. The next time out, I go up to him, I said, bro, did you say you're welcome for my dog? He's like, yeah, bro, my dad is farmer in the country, and he said some basketball player picked up the dog. I said, there's no way that just happened while I'm shooting free throws.
It's so unserious.
And it's just so classic, like Serbian,
so classic,
like wild west. And then last one before we wrap this up. So my coach that first and second year, again, he's kind of involved in the government, interesting fellow. He'd always bring this he had a big belly, big guy, short, big guy, big glasses, had a belly. And he'd always carry this little, like, long strapped backpack, but the actual pack was about like this big. And he was always wearing designer and stuff. Like, he was like classic European, like unnecessary designer clothes. And so he obviously had money. And he let us know all the time he had money. And we're playing this game. And before the game, our locker rooms were so small that the coaches, like they would like change kind of like in the corner, like in our same locker room, which is kind of weird. And he puts the backpack up there, he unzips it. I'm telling you, the roll of cash was like this big. All 500 euro notes. They don't even have 500 US dollar bills. And he goes, and he looks over at me, smiles. He goes, 25,000. I'm like, what? And he goes, and then all of a sudden he says it louder, 25,000. And then everybody looks at him. And he like looks back and he's like, you win this game, 3,000 euros you split amongst you. I'm like, I was making $1,200 a month. I'm like, dude, yes. So play the game. I think it ended with like 30. We win. Comes back in. He's like, we're all celebrating. He's hooting and hollering. Pulls out the wad of cash. He has a stat sheet in one hand, the wad of cash in the other. He goes, okay, 3,000, but I choose. So he starts reading off the stats. He goes, Trey, 30 points, 9 rebounds, whatever. He starts counting out the money. He gives me 1,000. So now the rest of the team's splitting 2,000. He goes to the next guy, 400. Next guy, boom, boom, goes to the players that didn't play. Or it gets down to the players that didn't play. He pulls out a €5 €5 and throws it at each player. €5, 4 bench players, and the money's like fluttering in the air down. And it's like dead silent there. I'm holding like €1,000 in my hand, like looking at him like should I give these guys some money? Like, we're all a team, but it's like this crazy feeling, man. Dude, this is a wild west, man.
These are the stories I live for, man. Like, I swear, like it's like, you know, I feel like this podcast has accurately described like the dichotomy of Serbian basketball. Like it's so
Yeah.
competitive and it can be so good, but at the same time, it's just like these are random moments and like the most unserious, like
Yeah.
things that you just wouldn't find almost anywhere else. Like it perfect description of Serbian basketball. And it's funny because like there's just listening to stories from my parents and family members, like so much talent, so much potential with like certain guys, and they just like flame out, and it could be for like the dumbest reasons. I'm not saying that guys don't flame out in the States too, and other like I mean Serbian basketball is not like the only like whatever, but just like the manner in which they flame out, and like for like the most stupid reasons, like I can't even like begin. I don't even know how I would describe it to someone who's like not familiar with it, because like if I were to tell you like, hey, so and so didn't end up becoming a basketball player because like he had to go help his grandma on the farm or something, but
Yes.
he had
Yes.
this like but just like crazy talent, like
Yeah.
was like a top prospect in Serbia, but like he had what, like he had to go on the farm, like he had to go milk the cows.
That's what it
Like,
is. It's like Jokic with the horse racing. It's like those
yeah,
style things show up everywhere.
like there's another universe where Jokic is just like, yeah, I'm gonna do the horse thing. I'm not gonna do
Yeah.
basketball.
Just be
And
the
and
goat.
we're yeah, and we're just robbed of like arguably top 5 center of all time. Like we just
Yeah.
never know about him, like because he just decided to race horses.
For sure.
Like
For sure.
that's just what it is. Trey, listen, man, this has been great. I feel like we've touched on so much. Honestly, we've been recording for 2 hours. It certainly has not felt like it. We started off with your journey, with your story, how you came to European basketball, which was super insightful for me, for someone, having ties to Serbia and to Europe, but not knowing kind of the intricacies and how does someone from the States end up there, was super valuable. We talked about a lot of mindset stuff. We touched on your company, Atypical. The one thing that we didn't touch on is some of the content stuff that you're doing, but maybe in another episode when you come back on, we can touch more on that and kind of your mindset around that. But all those links will be in the description. So go check out Trey's Instagram, Trey's YouTube channel. I binge watched a bunch of your videos today in preparation for this podcast. And, sometimes when I'm doing research, I'm like, I got to do research. But today was actually enjoyable because your videos are great, man. And reading the comments, speaking of, just funny stuff, reading the comments, like some of the comments cracked me up, like
So
especially
funny.
like when you're like first moved to Lithuania and you're like, I don't know how to pronounce this thing, and and you're like, I hope the comments don't like go too hard on me. Yeah. And it's like everyone just like, oh, how dare you, whatever
So
negativity.
disrespectful.
But then there's some comments, and it's like the broken English that always gets me. It's like, hey man, you're trying your best, like, keep going, like keep, but it's like
For sure.
so funny, man. So go check out Trey's YouTube. Trey, before we sign off, man, anything else you want to plug or talk about?
No. I think I just appreciate you having me on here, and any chance I can get to speak some life into the next generation of basketball players, the next generation of athletes, entrepreneurs. That's kind of the goal of what I do on social media and everything I share with my brand. And that's the big picture outside of basketball, is to uplift that next generation of potential pros in whatever avenue that's going to be. So I appreciate you having me on, Nick. And yeah.
Awesome, man. No, I appreciate you for coming on, and all the best.
All right. Cheers, brother.